It's Monday, guys, and this Irishman gives me gray hairs every Monday. He's here in the back room. Finally, I told him I was about to pull the show, but here he is. I'm very happy to say. Anyway, but before we have Mr. Miles on, and we're going to be talking about Earth and this literally being a prison planet where beings, people, whatever you want to call them, are being brought here from other dimensions and I guess tested on. So let's see. I think us humans are not that innocent. We're very corruptible, which is why we're so attractive to whoever. Anyway, let's just do the announcements for the week, shall we? Okay, enlarge it for grandma's eyes. And of course, okay, Monday today, we have Miles Johnston. Tuesday, tomorrow, 6 o'clock, South African time. Simone Anderson, great new guest. Wow, what a fabulous guest. Expert on history, on the planet, talking about, gosh, I don't have my notes with me now, but literally the control that the Vatican has. And we're going to be speaking about things along those lines. So join me for that, please, tomorrow evening. Fabulous lady. And then Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock, Central Africa time, Dr. Jörg Prince. We were supposed to have him on last week, but unfortunately, my internet gave in literally 2 minutes after the start of the show. But we're going to be talking on the Flexner report. And that is a really, really interesting one. So join us if you can for that. I know it's an odd time for you Americanos. But yeah, the Flexner report is basically explaining how, I think it was Dale Carnegie, now I might have that wrong, so let me not give names here. But basically, they did the research into all the universities that were teaching natural medicine. And 150 odd universities were actually closed down, along with Black universities as well, where allopathic medicine then became the norm. And how they've literally, well, I don't know if this is coming into it, but homeopathy was a big one that they've actually infiltrated, by the way. Homeopathy is one of those, but that they've literally taken away the natural medicine and created allopathic medicine. So we're going to be looking into that, just another one of the corruptions that we've had to endure. Jesse's away this week again, but we are doing the full series on the Gateway experience on Wednesday again. So this is really important information when we're looking at a lot of the survivors coming out and sharing their testimonies. Almost all of them have been through the Gateway Project. And if not, they would have gone through something very similar. So it helps us to understand how the controllers have weaponized the minds and the spiritual gifts of children. And it's important because when we're seeing the result thereof now, we can see what we're dealing with. You know, we are dealing with mind-controlled slaves or the offspring of mind-controlled slaves. So we're in quite a tenacious time, but if we can understand what we're seeing, we then actually have the tools to deal with it. And that's why we, especially now, doing the reruns of that. And then, of course, on Thursday, the Protection Patterning series. Join me for that. That's really cool because we're talking about how we protect ourselves and how we can repattern that. You know, we will often see ourselves or each other as being manipulative or some type of negative personality trait, rather. And we think that we can't change it because it's so become part of our patterning. But we can when we understand how we've protected ourselves from a very young age. We literally repattern and align back with our original God-given soul technology. And that's how we get out of the matrix. So join me for that. And then we're doing a drop-in with Shanti on Friday. We're on both Solutions and Era. This past week, we did actually on Friday. For those of you guys who haven't seen that yet, really, please watch it. It's literally about how the AI companies have used Africa, third world countries, countries like Kenya, Uganda, Philippines, India, to label what they call AI. So they are paying the workforce like between $1 and $2 an hour. I said a day in the beginning, but it's actually an hour. And they have to go through the most horrific pictures, from child porn to executions to bestiality, whatever, and label it for AI, right? They not only go through huge amounts of trauma, but literally these AI companies are making billions a year, but yet paying these people pittance and refuse to take responsibility for anything. But there's courts, there's court cases going on behind the scenes. And I really want to draw attention to that. So please, guys, we need to know this information because we're using it every single day. And it's not about stopping using it, but it's about being aware. It's about being aware of what we are using and the human beings behind AI, because AI hasn't taken over. It's merely just hiding the human beings who are actually giving it the information. Very important show that, so please just check that out. And then, of course, I think we have Leo Zagami on Friday. I haven't confirmed yet, but I think so. Saturday, we're doing a rehum with 2 of JC's shows again. And then on Sunday, again, we're doing the last of the Gateway Experience. And then we did an interview with JC and Caleb Jade as well. So we're going to be rerunning those shows on the weekend. So as always, get your chai, get your tea, whatever your beverage of choice is, put your feet up, yes, ching ching, and enjoy what we have on this beautiful prison planet of ours with Miles Johnston. Hello, Miles. How are you?
Well, Chantel, I've got my new ring light, and nothing else is important. And
Miles, you look gorgeous as it is.
Well, sort of over the word. This is a promo for the. I get this mic out. If I get this mic, this is not a Shure mic. I'm getting it out of the way temporarily. This is the 100th anniversary of this famous rock and roll microphone. And this is a T-shirt celebrating 100 years of this mic that you've seen on radio and rock and roll. And that's the Shure. I don't know what the actual number of it is.
Sure, there it is. I have one.
Yeah, it's a Shure mic. Oh,
wow.
And I got this T-shirt. I sort of chatted about it and stuff, but you see so many fakes of it. But this is the one with Elvis Presley and all that, and it's 100 years. And that was last year, I think, 2025, or maybe. So I think the T-shirt's older than the mic, actually. But well, it's just interesting that this sort of technology's been around 100 years. Because before that, the BBC had these big things, and it was ribbon microphones suspended inside a massive thing, and RCA or something written on it. But the Shure mic was a robust mic that could be, chucked around with pretty heavily on rock and roll and jazz and stuff like that. And it's 100 years. So there it is. I'm continuing to investigate a team of people who were being abducted for about 10 years. It's about a dozen of them. A couple of them aren't with us anymore. And originally this was investigated by the Birmingham UFO group. And we hear very little about British abductees. We hear an awful lot about the American ones, which everything has to be or whatever. But and we did a thing way back in 2011 with a friend of mine, a very lovely lady called Joanne Summerscales, and that included a key member of that group. The Amash group was David Griffin, and he was the one who got the initial stuff, the word on the sentient oil, which has been called black goo.
Right.
And that was covered by a very important international magazine called Nexus Magazine, and that's the main editor of that's down in Australia, called Duncan Rhodes. I think it's Duncan Rhodes. I don't think it's any connection to this lady, this lovely lady here, one of your stars. She's busy in America.
Yes. She's gallivanting around the globe right now, that lovely lady.
Yeah, well, she's first class. The key to her connection with bases is that she knew the baby farms that one of the key witnesses in the Bases project, which is connected to James Casbolt and the Barry King stuff in Reading. An awful lot of stuff going on in Reading, which is spelt reading, but for some reason you've got to call it Reading.
Was that Tina Bird?
No. That was, well, there is Tina Bird, yes. But it was, no, it's a lady who was on Basis 1.
Okay.
She had to leave Britain because the police were going to arrest her. And, well, basically, she was exposing child trafficking and human trafficking. And because the various services you may think are there for in your benefit, they're not. They're there to do whatever the controllers tell them to do. So, so the guy who initially came up with this case was Dave Hodrian, and he runs the Birmingham UFO group, and he'll be speaking at the very famous long-running Glastonbury Symposium at the end of July. I'll be speaking on the same weekend. I'll be speaking at Kerry Cassidy's Awake and Aware conference, which is held at the wonderful High Elms Manor, and it's the UFO Academy, and that's run by the O'Neill sisters, and very fine bunch of gals. And it's really nice to be interviewed. I mean, to be able to talk there at the end of last weekend of July. So Dave Hodrian initially came across this case of a dozen or so continuously abducted people. Now, the key to this is that they didn't come in spaceships. They didn't walk out of a UFO. There's another very important case, and this is going back to pre-war. One of the terrible things is that we're always focused on this bloody Roswell fiasco. I mean, everything can only happen if it's after Roswell. But this was a case in England, in a place called Gateshead, and it was during World War II. And the Americans were now coming into England to start the invasion, the whole thing, and all that. So this Yorkshire village, everybody was very excited, and everybody's lining the streets to see the GIs and the Americans coming in. And these kids, meanwhile, were playing in the back street, or you got the main road with all the houses and shops and stuff, and everybody was lining this as these Americans came in. It was very exciting. Meanwhile, these kids are playing round the back, and there's other people who are interested in the Americans coming. And this was a bunch of Greys, and this case is called the Gateshead Greys, and it was investigated by an independent a British researcher called Richard Hall, D. Hall, I think it is, Richard D. Hall, and he was subsequently heavily set up by the BBC. BBC Panorama did a whole thing because Richard had decided to check out these crisis actors, and there's an awful lot of stuff about crisis actors being used in false flags, and he
Yeah.
decided to investigate that. And he made a couple of mistakes, and he got hauled before the courts. And I think he's that case, that particular court case, he subsequently, had a. It was a civilian. It was a civilian.
Civil case.
A civil case. Anyway, so the point about these greys in 1943 in Gateshead, focusing on that, they didn't come in a flying saucer. They came through a portal, right? It just appeared in the middle of the street behind all the action. And these greys came in and had a look at what was going on with the American soldiers coming in. So this is during World War II, with aliens coming in, and it was a very important case that Richard investigated. However, as the portal closed, one of these greys was left behind, and it hid near a church. And Richard D. Hall covered this. It's called the Gateshead Greys, and all the details I think are on his website, which I don't know what it is. I think it's called richplanet.org or something like that. Richard D. Hall, Rich Planet. And he had a TV show on one of the small channels and things. So he's been very famous. He's been running around doing an awful lot of independent research. And we leave it at that. The point. So this case illustrates the greys come into our reality through a portal. No flying saucers, right? So spinning forward now to 20 years ago. This is where these people, about a dozen of them, were having repeated abductions and interface with multiple different types of ETs. Now, they all had their experiences. Now, this didn't involve flying saucers. They just arrived. They came. They appeared. And there was a variety of these types of ETs, including all of the normal ones we've heard, reptilians, greys, and the Nordics and all that. So it's very unusual, and it's very important that Dave Hodvian in the Birmingham UFO group was doing very good research on all this. The point is, after a while, these contactees decided to ask a few questions of these so-called ETs that were coming to visit them. And they didn't like being asked questions. And they didn't like being asked awkward questions. Now, one of the things which really got me going on the testimony of way back in 1984, when I heard about programmed generated life forms being made in a British base in Berkshire. So we have an underground base. The nearest village above the base is called Peasmore, and the nearest RAF facility is in RAF nuke strike nuke base called RAF Welford. And this is when an awful lot of this country's got bases all over the place. They're all connected underground, or not all, but most of them. And one of the key civilian access points to this was the Rutherford Appleton laboratories. Again, a lot of this is happening then across up in from Berkshire up into Oxfordshire, and also further south and west into Wiltshire, and all over the place. And of course, Wiltshire is famous for the Warminster thing in the 1960s, where a whole pile of ETs and all sorts of things going on in under the bases there in Warminster. And this is right on the edge of a huge place called Salisbury Plain. And this is a big lump of basically limestone, and it goes basically from approximately Warminster in that area west of Stonehenge. Stonehenge is on top of this whole thing. That extends the whole way towards London and Reading. Being limestone and all that is easy to tunnel, and there's all sorts of stuff down there. So the point about this is they started asking awkward questions, and one of the key things that happened with Barry King and Lisa Williams, they talked about the Greys and the reptilians in Peasmore and the underground bases in that area. And the key to that is how they were double crossing everybody. Everybody's double crossing everybody. And this is typical behavior you get in any normal civilian organization. You got different departments within the same company or the same organization, all sabotaging each other, which is very negative. I mean, one of the things that they did at Sky TV when this new sort of group of management came in via basically the back door from China, we always had two department heads and two department this. And their job was to lie and deceive their other one.
Yeah.
Competitively.
Yeah.
So they would be sitting down together and they'd both be smiling at each other, and they were being trained to hate and sabotage the other one. So when I saw this happening, the basic, the way that the reason why I decided to move on with this weird story about a base in Berkshire making programmed generated life forms. In other words, they were knocking off versions of the Greys, and there were other uses for the Greys, and they were for use for the lunar base. And also we've also lost Nick Pope, but I think I talked about him the last time. So the key to this is the level of deceit that goes on between human organizations. Okay? So when you hear there is deceit going on with the aliens, it's not a surprise, but it makes the whole story ring true.
Absolutely.
That's the point. So that's and I interviewed Paul, I think, on Friday night. First time I've been able to interview this guy for about 2 years at least, possibly 2023, I think, possibly the last time I saw him, because we spin really quite quickly to 2024, and we've gone through 2025 really fast. And so to get him to start talking, we did a 2-hour plus interview, and I actually have to get that edited. So that, I think, was on Friday. And on top of the revelations about Nick Pope's father being involved with some kind of beam weapon technology to disable nuclear weapons. Did we talk about that the last time? I think we did.
Not really. We touched on it.
So, so Nick Pope, he passed on. So anyway, that was Nick Pope's father. Anyway, don't want to get off topic. So the point is, you've got a bunch of about a dozen British experiencers having repeated contact with Greys and stuff. Now, the exciting thing about this is they'd go out on camping trips and they'd stay in the Wiltshire, and guess where they'd camp? On one of the hills right beside Avebury. There's nothing happening here. Please move along. So,
right.
Avebury is, of course, about 10 miles north of Stonehenge, but right opposite Avebury is West Kennet Longbarrow. And surprise, surprise, there's an East Kennet Longbarrow, which the owner of that land does not want anybody to get anywhere near it. So even the archaeologists aren't allowed on, and they won't allow any investigation on that. But West Kennet Longbarrow, which is open to the public, has had numerous reports of people over the years. They'd sit on top of Silbury Hill, which you're not meant to climb on top of that, and there's case after case of some kind of ETs or beings or dimensional beings coming out of the environs of West Kennet Long Barrow. Now, West Kennet is basically at the source of the River Kennet, which then goes along with the River Avon, and you have that, whatever. So that's the source of that. So we've had lots of different, and if you go to the Barge Inn, which is in Honey Street, the famous crop circle, if people want to visit that, when they come to Wiltshire, there's a wonderful pub called the Barge at Honey Street. Now, it's a little bit like telling somebody they live on Station Road. Which Station Road? The one in the town where the station is, right? So there's Honey Street. The Barge at Honey Street is, believe it or not, the one at Honey Street. There are other barge pubs, just because it's along a thing called the canal where barges float past. So, am I being too simplistic or sarcastic here? But the point about that, there's a wonderful ceiling artwork featuring the quirky nature of the area and Honey Street, and it has certain of the older crop circles on it. And the barge has changed hands a couple of times, and it was updated. But one of the key little stories of that wonderful ceiling mural, it's nothing on this bit of artwork that Da Vinci, or what's his name, painted as some dodgy knocking shop in Rome somewhere, in the Vatican or whatever it is. But we won't. Oh, did I say something wrong here? No. But they actually have painted in one corner of this these. One of the stories, one of the experiences about what happened was 2 Merkabahs came out of West Kennet, and West Kennet, between West Kennet, Long Barrow, and Silbury Hill is a very, very famous road. It's called the A4 road, and that comes the whole way from London, going due west to Bristol. To Bristol. So it's one of the main roads, and there's a heck of a lot of stuff off the A4. Apart from the fact, the only thing that's really of any importance is my house in London was off the A4. Everything else being irrelevant, of course. And if you go into London, you'll have the great the British scientific bloody hell, what do you call them, museum place. There's an awful lot, a couple of big famous museums there where they got dinosaurs and other things. Improperly put together bits of stone, making something look as if it's, anyway, that couldn't possibly exist in the space-time domain that we are currently in. No way those things could live here. Right. So the point is, these experiencers had also had experiences with things coming out of West Kennet Long Barrow, and they were sitting on top of the next field due east, which is slightly higher, and so you can get a good view of the top of Silbury Hill, this famous hill the size of like a big pudding bowl upside down, but it's actually a structured multi-frequency capacitor. It has layers of mica and layers of flint and limestone, and those are all piezoelectric types of rock with insulators. Mica is an insulator, so that makes it a pulsed frequency, multi-frequency device. You've got to stop looking at these stones and megaliths as if there's some damn thing to celebrate the conjunction of Jupiter with Uranus on a Tuesday when the sun sets on the left rather than the right, that kind of stuff. The megaliths are highly technical electrical devices, and having said that, a friend of mine's got something called Megalithomania Explorations 2026, and that is I'm doing the tech on that, and that's the 9th to 10th of May, 2 days of lectures and 3 days of tours to megalithic sites, and that is available megalithomania.co.uk. It's the 20th anniversary, So you'll see me in there swearing like hell because something's gone wrong or somebody hasn't done something or whatever, and I do the tech on that. So that's Hugh Newman's thing. And Hugh Newman appears in Ancient Aliens. He doesn't appear as an ancient alien. He appears as Hugh Newman. And they do an awful lot of work on stuff like Göbekli Tepe and stuff like that, which is a bit of a dodgy place because they're not telling you about all the skulls buried underneath those stones, because potentially reptilians came and ate a lot of humans. Well, that's the point about this little whimsical story. So these highly experienced contactees would camp out, and they were having experiences with greys that would just turn up. So bunches of greys, tall greys, small greys, and other types of ETs would, just turn up around Silbury Hill, West Kennet Long Barrow, and Avebury. In other words, in terms of an alien hotspot, it's pretty damn busy.
Yeah, I was going to say there's obviously certain portals or ley lines that they follow.
There are ley lines, and there's a lot of stone structures there, and the whole thing is Richard C. Hoagland and Mark Carlotta way back when the Face on Mars was first announced. This mile-long structure, a mile long on Mars. Oh, they are using the same measurements on Mars as they use on Earth, a mile.
How interesting.
So there is a very similar structure on Mars at Cydonia as exists at Avebury. Okay, Avebury is within one large circle, which we only still have it today because there's a bloody road going through it. In fact, there's two roads going through it. There's a little village right in the middle of it called Avebury, believe it or not, in Avebury. And there were two rings of stones, and there's some very interesting science fiction children's programs made on this. So it's a very busy little place, Avebury. Now, the point is that these highly experienced people who had heightened awareness because they noticed certain patterns of shadows on the tent, on the roof of the tent, and they noticed that these big, wide, oval eyes things were simply the shadows from trees nearby. Right? Now, where they actually stayed at the top of this hill, there aren't any trees nearby. It's right at the top of a hill. There are hedges, but where they'd initially seen those weird oval eyes was inside the tent, and what they were becoming they were beginning to actually see the pattern and how these greys can be standing there, and you can start seeing them. And once you start seeing them, then your brain builds up. You see, our brains work on a whole lot of pattern recognition symbols.
Yes.
We see an awful lot of stuff, but rather than it's just like how MPEG motion MPEG encoding works. Your brain, in order to minimize the need to properly recognize everything, it simply goes through a lookup table of what it expects to see when it sees things. However, if you don't have the lookup table to compare what you're seeing, you're not going to see anything at all because the brain doesn't see the pattern, so it just throws it out, right? So once you start acclimatizing your optics and your perception to different kinds of shapes, you're going to suddenly see a hell of a lot more of them.
Absolutely.
It's a bit like if you're looking for a blue Mercedes.
Yes.
I want to buy a blue Mercedes. I've deliberately said blue rather than a black Mercedes. You suddenly start seeing an awful lot of blue Mercedes driving around.
Yes.
It's not because somebody's decided to drive loads of blue Mercedes around. It's because you're looking for them, so you see them.
Yes,
You notice them.
absolutely.
And that is how magicians work with tricks. You're not expecting this, so that you don't see something, and then you see, wow, that just materialized. And I think the same thing happened with Captain Cook. First went to the South Sea Islands and whatever. They hadn't seen a sailing ship before. So whilst they were familiar with rowing boats, they hadn't seen a sailing ship, so they just assumed that those things on top of the ship were clouds. They didn't notice them, right? They weren't something that. So they assumed that Captain Cook and those people who came in a small rowboat from the sailing ship, so they weren't aware of sails. However, he was greeted for that, and then later on, when he started to rip people off and cause a lot of trouble, I think Captain Cook was murdered, wasn't he? Anyway, the point about it is, once they became familiar with that shape, they saw the sails. So they then realized these are ordinary men, and they're not gods from the sea or some bloody thing, right? So likewise, when you have a dozen repeat observers, people who have a lot of experience with different types of so-called ETs, and they're not coming from flying saucers, they're just coming through the wall or some other portal of some kind. And remember, the standing stones are all portals. Okay, so our ancient megalithic forefathers were familiar with multidimensional physics, off-world travel, interdimensional travel, and so forth. They knew what they were doing when they paid those standing stones, and they weren't just looking at the alignment of stars on a Tuesday in the middle of the winter or whatever bloody time.
Miles, it's very interesting because it makes me think that the flying saucers and stuff we see is really not interdimensional beings at all. Because I've always thought about this, I always say your body is actually your spaceship, right?
Exactly.
It's a frequency thing. So you don't need to be getting in and out of spaceships to travel through portals. And I feel that's part of the PSYOP. So if you see spaceships, it's probably NASA. Any kind of spaceship technology or any spaceship flying in the sky is probably a NASA PSYOP that are trying to divert us from exactly what we're talking about here, the actual beings that are appearing. They know where to travel, how to come through portals, etc., etc. But there again, so do these creatures of the night. They know how to travel through portals. These guys have also been trained. So it's not, they can also travel through portals. That's what I'm saying. Right.
Well, the thing is, this is when, for instance, when I brought Valerie, what's her name? Just done it. Nothing like having, this lady, this beautiful lady, fantastic. Beverly. Well, it had an L-E-I in it, right? When I brought her down to see one of the little dodgy parts of the Vale of Pewsey, she was fully on message with what's going on there and picked up a whole lot of things, but we leave that for another time. So we're going down this little narrow country road, and there's a guy walking there near where I was being there to have a look at this, what we call a spaceship house. It's a glass aluminium type structure, which looks a little bit like the lunar module from, the way the lunar module looked. It's actually a pyramid, and it's got a sort of central concrete center to it. And it's very, very nice. It's designed by some enormously famous, incredibly famous architect. And it's part of the Rothschild land of where they would have a summer house or something. And one of my controversial experiences, a woman called Sandra DeRoy, she has an American accent because she's actually from Estonia, but her English is taught as an American. So she walked up to this place Hi, I'm a dumb American. I'm a tourist. She plays stupid rather too well, you know. But the point is, she actually gained access. She's also very attractive. So she was able to, she was playing all her cards right. And she got into the place and sort of did a bit of video of it and everything else. So it's, if you look at her stuff, I think she's either called, I think she could be on YouTube. She might be called Miss Sepsis. Such a delightful title. But the point is, this place is interesting. And that's why I was taking Beverly down to see it. So as we drove down the road, because they knew we were coming, there was a dog walker. Always be tuned into the dog walker, right? Now, believe it or not, there are people who walk dogs who are not secret agents or connected to the NSA or other unmentionable secret service. So some people are doing a thing called, as Einstein would say, sometimes a pen is just a pen. Now, because this is my hypersonic Doctor Who pen, I can burn through 16 feet of steel with this, or I can put a couple of wings on it and it'll fly straight through tall buildings in New York one sunny day in December, or was it September? Whatever. Anyway, God, I'm double sarcasming myself here. The point is, we drove down, did a 3-point turn, and drove back. Now, this is a very narrow, very steep hedges and sort of structured sides because it's going through heavy foliage and trees and stuff like that. So it's very narrow, and it's not as if you can suddenly just appear from somewhere. Well, that's exactly what happened. We do a 3-point turn, all of about less than a minute after going past the first guy. Now, the point is, the first guy was walking and he was adjusting his watch. As he looked towards us, he was adjusting his watch. We drove past, 3-point turn, and driving back. Within the best part of maybe a minute to 2 minutes, that's all it took. As we're driving back, another man has appeared, just like that, walking his dog, meeting the other guy. There is no way he could have walked in just on that, where it was. It's not as if he suddenly just sort of appeared around a corner. There's nowhere for him to come from. So he had brought in another dog walker.
Right.
So the idea that these aliens and could turn up out of nowhere, like that you're camping in the middle of a field and then a group of ETs drop by and the other guy rushes in. It gets quite cold. The other guy was sort of had enough and he's sort of decided, I'm going to go and get some rest. Whereas his friend had woken up and he says, oh, they're going to be coming. They're going to be coming. Puts his shoes on. He's all excited. Then a bunch of bloody greys turn up. Top of this hill. Out of nowhere. And he knew they were going to turn up. So just gating in is what happens. Now, I had an experience for one of the crop circles. It's in an area, Hackpen Hill, which is another place where the Salisbury Plain, when it finishes, it goes quite steeply down, drops a good 300 odd feet. But it gives people the opportunity to be up on top of the hill and look down at crop circles. You can just get up the hill and there you got these wonderful circles. And so this particular scientist, you can always tell a scientist. He's pale and he's always got somebody accompanying him because he needs an assistant or he must to help the guy out for some reason. So these two people turn up. I'm busy minding my own business, putting in the time on a Sunday afternoon. And this guy turns up out of nowhere, and immediately, as you do on a Sunday afternoon, Chantel, what would you talk about on a Sunday afternoon in the summertime when you just meet somebody?
Light
Oh,
stuff.
come on, Chantel, it's on the tip of your tongue. The first thing you're going to talk about to a stranger is fifth dimensional physics. I mean, it's just you go to the pub, have a Guinness. The first thing you talk to the bar staff is, "How's your theory of fifth dimensional physics?" And you know what? You know, the average barman would be able to strike up a conversation about how complicated it is, and run off a whole pile of fifth dimensional equations and mathematics and things. Everybody does that. I mean, really, obviously, Shanta, I've embarrassed you so much because obviously that's the first thing that you talk about to a stranger.
Exactly.
So it just turns out that Lisa's kids from Basis 1, well, for want of a better term, they happen to be recruited in round figures here into the secret space program. You're not meant to talk about that because it's a secret. Shh. You're not meant to, and you're also not meant to make T-shirts out of it with these things. My second attempt to get these printed on T-shirts have failed. And you don't know what those are because they're secret, okay? You don't know what these are. They're secrets. Right. So these guys from some kind of, obviously, Harvard or Princeton, started talking to me about five-dimensional physics and blah, 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 right? They then lied, right? Oh, we've just come up from the crop circle, right? That was their excuse of suddenly appearing from nowhere. Oh, we've just come up from this crop circle. So then when we've had our conversation, and me, obviously, as you well know, I'm able to talk about five-dimensional physics just like that to these people. You know, just the sort of thing that, as I'm okay, I've done that joke too many times. So, of course, these two scientists say, oh, goodbye. Okay, well, we're just going to go down to see the crop circle, right? But they've just come up from the bloody thing, and now they're asking a way down to it. So they hadn't come up the hill, which is their excuse. They've obviously they just said they've come from the crop circle, which is why they started talking about five-dimensional physics. And then we're going back to the crop circle. Oh, but how do you get down there? 5 minutes ago, you just come back, you come up from there. Now you're looking at how you get down there. I remember when I was on I was asked to host a show. It's one thing being on TV, right? It's another thing to host the bloody show you're on, Yeah. Get that commercial break right, and don't miss your 10-second cue. Otherwise, you're in trouble. You'll clip the break. Oh, if you don't want to clip the break. We had the person I was interviewing had a lot of experiences. I've got the sun coming around here, so I'm going to get eaten. Anyway, so she had just come from her hotel. Right? We did the show. Behind her in the studio, there's a little bleep of red light, at which point she would change her personality because she would talk about the Rendlesham Forest UFO events. And then when it came to the end of the show, she asked the production team, how do I get to the hotel? She'd just driven from it to do the show. But after a little bit of light, in the studio behind her had changed, but she had changed or been swapped over during the show.
Wow.
So the point
is that common?
It means that from a UFO ET perspective, if you're coming to Avebury and you're coming to Cher Hill, which is right beside Avebury, And somebody told me that there is a big, fat, massive ancient craft buried underground at Cher Hill, which is within half a mile, possibly 3/4 of a mile from Avebury. So you got people meeting graves on the hills above Avebury between West Kennet Longbarrow, Silbury Hill, and Avebury on a repeated occasion. When I mentioned this to a couple of people, oh yeah, one of ours, blah, 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 and suddenly you got 4 or 5 cases of people engaging greys in the environment of Silbury Hill, the hill due east of Silbury, which is then just south of Avebury. So Avebury, Cher Hill, which is on the Yatesby Field, and the Yatesby Field is where people used to fly to see all the crop circles. So that whole little area. And if you just drive further south, you're in where all the crop circles appeared. You're in where that little spaceship house is, and the Vale of Pusey, where the Rothschilds own all that. So that directly connects the Rothschilds with the
Right.
and the major big portal where craft have been seen flying cloaked straight out. They got it on video from that massive base underneath the Vale of Pusey. So there's nothing going on here. Just move along.
Now, it's interesting for me that the Rothschilds have obviously managed to obtain that land or that area there where all the stuff is. So obviously they are, I mean, they would obviously know exactly how to use these portals and be engaging in and out of these things regularly. So not all of these things are of a positive vibration. Do you think?
Absolutely, and that's one of the key points about this. Now, the last thing that Paul mentioned to me on Friday night was he just slips this into the conversation, slipping something in on the conversation here. This has got very, very ominous possibilities. He, again, is highly experienced at repeated contact with these ETs from external dimensions coming in, the whole 9 yards, everything. He's and then he mentions that in his previous life, he remembers very clearly that wherever they weren't on Earth. They were in a lifetime in a galaxy far, far away, whatever. His whole village or the environment and what he was in, I'm even getting the heebie-jeebies here. I'm getting the heebie-jeebies. What he explained was that these golden balls, I've just had another bit of a problem. These golden balls started expanding, and when they reached their full height, when the bottom of the ball, they weren't glowing bright, they were simply golden balls. And there's another, I've just remembered another thing about the area, right? So as the golden balls, there were dozens of them all over the place. Once they touched the ground, they opened, and these reptilians ran out at lightning speed. He got hit, he got attacked, and just started to just collapse, and his view of the world just descended into darkness. The next thing he remembers is waking up or becoming perceptive in a baby in a womb, and that's how he was brought into this world.
Wow.
Now, surprise, surprise, on the Vale of Pusey, you've got Knapp Hill, and you've got just beside Knapp Hill, and remember, the Rothschild land's just literally just down below you. This is on this massive escarpment where you can look down at where these massive fields are and crop circles and things. It's a wonderful place to come in the summertime if you happen to be coming to this part of the world. And beside Knapp Hill, there's Golden Ball Hill. Wow. And do you know what? When you've been on Golden Ball Hill, and a lot of people do CE6 CE5s and CE6s on those hills.
What's
There's
CE5?
That's when you bring in ETs.
Right. Okay.
Now, I don't know whether that's a CE6 or CE5, but the point is you provide an active, let's bring the ETs in, that kind of a thing, right? And that works. And you've got to be careful with how you do that. The point about this is that you then have Golden Ball Hill, and then just further east of that, there's a pub with a big golden ball. You know?
With a whole lot of ETs hanging out in it, no doubt.
Yeah, they're all sitting there having pints of the local ale, you know.
Oh my God. I'd like to know how that affects the ETs, the local ale, actually.
Well, to be honest, it's just you shouldn't be drinking that kind of stuff, especially in daytime. That's a bloody disgrace if you do it.
It's a disgusting disgrace. But I want to see what the ET. I want to see what the ETs do.
Just seeing where I can. I'm gonna have to move my. The sun is moving. Do you realize the sun moves in the sky all the time?
Yeah, it's following you.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. There's
Really, I like it. Golden ale.
Yeah.
Is it called the Golden Ale?
Yeah, they do have golden ale. Yeah, they do have golden ale. Yeah, because it's a very refreshing ale. I think they call it PIA.
Okay, now, okay. So what's the whole thing about that then? And there's got to be something that they're calling everything Golden Ball Hill, Golden Ball Pub, Golden Ale. What is that? What are the ETs that hang around?
Well, that's
there?
obviously, Chantel, it's due to the golden wheat when it's the crop that's been made, right? Now, I won't tell you about the jet black orbs that this guy photographed over that beautiful landscape. Broad daylight, a big spiky jet black object, and there's no way he was told to bring those photographs to me so I would see the big black spiky negative orb. You know,
I'm very happy he never brought anything like that to you so that we could not be discussing this. But just speaking hypothetically, it would be wonderful if he did.
I'll have to read that. What is hypo? Hypo, is that an injection?
Hypothetical. I mean, it's like, what if? It's the what if.
You see, what I'll have to find another place to do this, because when that sun turns right, it's moving out of the sky, and I see you've got it on your backdrop. That's what's moving. I'm talking rubbish here.
What? Nothing's moving on my backdrop.
Your backdrop's got a sun above me, and that's what's shining on me. You see, if I do that,
oh, it's there. Yes. Okay.
God, some of my humor is really bad. Anyway, this means the conclusions to this is, if I'm getting too off mic, let me know. I can always do this and do that, but then I can't use my hands. Okay, that's probably not a bad thing, actually. It means that the reptilians are running around taking humans from different places, and it's possible that's why we have so many different races on Earth. If you take the Chinese, they don't like anything before the first dynasty. And of course, before the first dynasty, there are these mummified, auburn-haired mummies all across China. And there are all these pyramids and stuff in China. It's amazing. But they don't, because that happened before the first dynasty, that shows that the Chinese are really relatively recent arrivals. And maybe they were brought here by these reptilians or whoever. Oh, I can't hear you. I better get that mug. You're on mute, Chantel.
I can't believe I just put myself on mute. How dare I?
Well, I actually didn't see you to put yourself on mute, so I think something mysterious happened. But we now have a situation. A lot of people talk about Earth as a prison planet. what I'm saying is we now have the opportunity to take control of this planet, because if you notice, an awful lot of the top echelons of power are behaving like idiots.
Yeah.
So to give credit where it's due, what's her name? Kimberly Googan. Kim Googan. She said, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, that the upper levels of managerial control by various different types of ETs are gone.
Yes.
So we are on a planet which if you look at the control structures, they're all idiots. They're making stupid mistakes. They're running around like headless chickens. This is our opportunity to take control of the situation, purely for health and safety reasons. If you look at the kind of decisions that have been made by the commanding structures, they're illegal. They don't care about whether any of this is right or wrong. They just are losing it. And I think it's an opportunity. This is what happened when one of the people I dealt with, he'd been able to not just remote view, but he was able to physically act in a base with thousands of caged humans in it, of all different types. Now, the point was, the cages didn't have locks. They just assumed that they couldn't get out, so they never bothered trying to get out. He told them, yeah, they're all open, come on. And thousands of these people managed to leave this base, and then these other types of ETs, whatever they were, followed him, and he had to shoot back. This was a fighting thing, but he got hit. They had some kind of technology that they could fire something on him. But it was also something that he knew, that when he remote viewed and bilocated, he could actually have effect physically at whatever was there. And that was very important. He didn't know he could do that. And when you deal with Professor Dr. Rowney Kilda, she decided, she was former chief medical officer of Finland, and she decided to do a remote viewing experiment and take notes and sort of look at it from an objective point of view. So she had decided to do the meditation, and she left her body, and she left her body. And being a doctor, her first natural thing that she wanted to do was to check her own pulse. So she her etheric body was able to lift and measure the pulse on her body she just left. Now, she didn't know that you're not meant to do that. So she didn't realize you don't have, you can't physically affect materially a body in this 3D world, because we're not a 3D world. See, she was able to gain and measure her own pulse when she left her own body. Okay?
Wow. So
this guy, Matt Todd, who'd been able to leave his body, was able to affect physical, a ritual that a lot of Masons were doing with his skull, and he was able to physically smash the skull and break whatever ritual they were doing.
From out of his body, as not in a physical form. Out of
his body and affect things and affect physical things.
That's a level of mastery, because but
Chantal, he didn't realize you needed to be a master.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's where the mastery in itself is, right? That he just with pure intention, he was able to do that. Just pure intention gave him that. So all he needed was the intention.
Yeah. But he didn't know you needed intention. He just did it. Do you see what I mean?
That's exactly it. It was his natural abilities just acted. It was like a natural reflex for him to do that.
And that's the point with this. These people seem to have been taken like a raiding squad, and they've been brought to this domain. It seems that we can now take over the asylum from the lunatics, and the lunatics are all our governing structures.
Yeah,
They're making so many mistakes. This is the time that we as beings, whatever number of us can do this, just get on with it. This is now the time to get on with it.
Exactly. And we actually literally taking the system out from the inside out. There's no doubt in my mind, there's a number of us that have incarnated at this time in this place to do exactly that, is to literally dismantle the system from the inside out. And we can't do that unless we actually hear ourselves doing it. And with a lot of spiritual awareness and a lot of, obviously, intelligence, are we able to do it?
Well, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. I like that because that's why we're here, to literally do that. I do believe this is a prison planet. But we also, I want to just say as well, we as human beings, the only reason why we can be contained within this prison planet is because we've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten our abilities to actually move beyond these realms. We caught up in this, and this is the lower triad. Now we're looking at the chakra system. You're looking at the lower triad. Money, power, greed, sex, all of that stuff is what keeps the human being very much in a lower frequency.
Sorry, Chantel, could you write that down? But I think I missed that. Is that what life's all about?
Yeah. Okay. I'll say.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So that's what I've been missing then.
Yeah, but they're on a shirt. You're so funny, Miles. Hilarious. Exactly. You see, that's exactly my point. So when we are no longer caught in the temptation of those lower realms, we raise our frequency. That's when I say your body is your spaceship, because you literally elevate yourself out of there through pure frequency, sound, and vibration, the very things from which you were created. So when you understand how to do what your friend did, and you and I can have a conversation about that, because I've had experiences like that too. So, how do we do that? And we all have those abilities. We literally all do. And that's going to be the very thing that actually is going to be the thing that saves us. We're going to save ourselves. No one is coming here to save us.
Very important. I hope my audio is okay. This is very important, because we've got to stop, and we've got to phrase this correctly, which will be the first time for ages. The point is that we don't give our permissions away, and there's lots of subtle ways that we're entranced or trained into doing that all the time.
Exactly. And this is where we as humans have to understand. The first thing they do is disempower us. The minute many of us, even while we're still in the womb, right? The trauma, they know exactly. These guys are energy masters. They know exactly how to work with energy and how to screw with us human beings. They know exactly how to create trauma, and they know exactly how to disconnect us from that which is authentically ours at birth. But as long as we remember who we are, we start reclaiming that. It's like a seed starting to grow again. You start remembering who you are. And when you do, you become sovereign. And a person that's sovereign can never be manipulated. You learn to love.
This is very important, because we are entranced with all this fear stuff.
Exactly.
whole war that we're going through. They stop, start, stop, start.
Exactly.
There's more to this than meets the eye.
Yes.
In terms of the Iranian thing, and I don't know how it's affecting you guys down there, but it's the important thing is going to affect my basis conference, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get my guests in from the United States. So that would be serious if that happens. I mean, the rest of the world. No, I shouldn't joke about this. There's some very important things going on. But the other point about Nick Pope. Did we talk about the Rendlesham Forest UFO event stuff?
The what, sorry?
The Rendlesham Forest RAF Woodbridge US Air Force Bentwaters big UFO case last week. Okay, right. Nick Pope.
No, I don't think so.
Nick Pope
I don't
passed
think
away.
so.
Nick Pope passed away about 3 weeks ago. I think it was on Easter. That also, I see. It's interesting when these people pass away. You know, Nick Pope was worked in the Ministry of Defense. I'm going to put this mic down. I'll just have to do what I normally do and be a shouter. Nick Pope was former Minister of Defense, and that was DI 55. Desk in the Ministry of Defense, and there's the MOD, and he did a lot of UFO stuff. So if you wrote to the MOD or wrote to the government, the person who would write back to you would have been Nick Pope, and in that era, around about the early 90s and so forth. Around about 2000, and I wrote to him, and I get letters. In fact, some of my letters are in the Library of History, at Kew. Yeah. People have gone through the UFO records, and they found letters from me to Nick Pope. So he's the person who. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Right. So I was a UFO investigator for the British UFO Research Association, and I was based in Belfast. So we had an Irish branch, and we did a lot of work in Ireland, and there was another group in Dublin. Called Spectrum, and that goes back to the 70s before you were born, and most of your audience, and that was what I did. Blah blah blah. So when we I joined Sky TV at the very start, and Sky News. It was very exciting. Blah blah blah. So one of the things we had at Sky News was what was called the back half hour. And they were always looking for some kind of a show to fill the back half hour. And I came up with some stuff. It was very interesting. We did have a huge audience because we just on the air, all that sort of stuff. So they did a number of back half hour reports, and we talked about UFOs. And we did some very heavy stuff at Rendlesham Forest and the RAF Macrahanish base with a thing called the Aurora, which was this great mystery hypersonic plane that they talked about in Las Vegas in the early parts of the 1990s. Oh, the Aurora. Oh. And blah, blah, blah. So one of the key things that Nick Pope, his official response from the Ministry of Defense was Department DI 55 was UFOs are of no defense significance. Have I told you all that before?
No.
That was the official line. UFOs, no defense significance. And the idea was tricking us. Well, if it's of no defense significance, obviously they're just of no consequence, so we can forget about them. The point about it is they are of no defense significance because the whole point of the Basis Project was that we knew then that they were working with us in the underground bases and all over the place. They're walking about the streets, all that kind of stuff, right? And London, we understand, is one of the few cities, if not the only city in the world, where an ET can actually walk the street without the need to disguise itself.
What?
If you're close enough to being human. Because London's got such a diverse population that you can get away with it. You don't have to. And if somebody sees somebody, it's just irrelevant, right.
I've seen that in Cape Town, though. There's a place in Cape Town, and Cape Town is lots of UFO activity going on there. And my friend said to me once when I was there, she's, watch when you go to Green Market Square the next time. You walk around Green, and now anyone who knows Cape Town knows Green Market Square is an area in Cape Town, sort of central, more central, and lots of markets. So lots of people and lots of foreigners, and especially foreign Africans from foreign African countries. And I have seen things, I kid you not, in one day, I saw 3 different apparitions, attachments or whatever it was, and it was on African men, all of them on African men, and they were definitely foreign. I don't know from where, but not here. But there was lots of, I seen that, and it's not, and it's at that, there's an area in Cape Town, Green Market Square. I don't know why there, maybe as well, but there's a lot of that where it's what you're saying now. It's like they don't disguise themselves. They don't have to. It's like everyone sees each other there, and it's like you can hang out.
This is this very important thing about what's going on in terms of the administration in the States. There is synchronicity, a rather close synchronicity about the Epstein files and ET, and why the various intelligence assets are deleting a lot of the stuff. Oh, we deleted 4 million cases. We're very sorry.
I know, but we've already released everything. There's nothing left.
Nothing left.
Yeah.
So that's another thing altogether. But it means the fact that there was this idea from these witnesses that there was a raiding party. Wherever they were all captured within 5 seconds, a total experience of 15 seconds. A, experiencing them coming towards you in these gold spheres, and B, the next memory that they had was waking up as a baby in before birth, and they remember that. That's very, very serious. So that means that, I mean, one of the things which the late Max Spears explained, what the logos of governments, the coats of arms,
yes,
of these different families, yes, indicates which part of the SAR systems they come from.
Yes, yes. For those of you, we did it with our shows, the Jesse Zabota. That is, we do the decoding on that, on the different sigils and the different crests and stuff. It is absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating when you start learning how to read the crests of the different families and brotherhood lineages and stuff. It's actually, and you see who they belong to, who they worship.
There's only 7 of these left. If anybody wants one, 10
quid. Can I get one?
There's 7 of them left. That's it.
Can you send me one?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. But it's going to take like 100,000
more, because that's a year 2025.
Okay, I want one of those.
2026.
But can you make an extra large one for me? The next bases you have, like this size.
Bloody hell. Ladies and gentlemen, some people are picky, you know. Some people are choosy.
You're allowed to be.
And then they think they're special or important or something, right? So I'll have to see, right? Okay.
Thanks.
We're now going to continue with the program in black and white.
Please do. Oh, Miles. Oh, I love it. But it's very interesting. Wow. And yeah, I want to just say, if you guys are interested in actually looking at that and seeing that, Jesse has done quite a few of the decodes on the crests. So go check that out, as well as, you know, the churches and things, Miles, and not just that. And I know
going on with the churches, and there's nothing psychotronic about them or some kind of technology which was part of the Tartarian conspiracy. Nothing happening here. Please move along. Actually, there was a woman in Dublin who was walking along the street in Dublin and looking at the protest. She wasn't protesting, so they arrested her for loitering. Did you believe it?
DJ Miles. Yeah. Can you see him sitting behind that radio mic if he's the whole day?
I've
Lulabelle.
got the other mic here. Hello?
Yes.
Set yourself on fire. Oh, did you see that? Did you see that? God.
Oh, Miles.
What? You can't bloody. But you see the flames? Did you see that? This is a match.
What are you talking about? Can you send me one like that too?
Well, I was thinking of just talking into this, and then people would think it's actually a microphone.
Speaking to the match.
You actually see that?
I love it.
There we are.
I so need one of those in my house. Oh, no, I definitely need one of those in my house.
1 minute, I create flame, right?
You're the flamethrower.
Well, this evening I've got Brian Forrester with the beautiful Maria Wheatley, and we're on air in another hour and a half, so I've got to start preparing for that. That's is that a South African name? Forrester. It's not Foster. He's very
Foster, yeah, it's South African with a V or an F. V is usually South African. That's more Afrikaans. F is more English.
Oh yeah, he would have to be English. Yeah, right. Yeah. Very important. I've got to be careful. I've got to having a very important pre-thing for Bases 2026, and we're going to have those guys. We've got two of the guys who were part of that team of 12 are going to be at Bases 2026, and they have had these multiple experiences with ETs coming through portals. I think there's maybe a few came through alien spacecraft, whatever it is. But the key to it was that they asked too many awkward questions, and then the ETs pulled away, and they didn't like awkward questions. So there.
Well,
we've got Laura Eisenhower coming, and she's going to be coming on, I think, on her way over to China. So she's definitely going to be making it, hopefully, with all that sort of stuff. And
hang on, wait, hold the phone here a minute. I'm trying to understand how any questions can be too awkward for an ET. I don't think they'd find a question awkward.
They are lying to us, and they
exactly
they're lying. And the point about this is that they're behaving in a mysterious way, like, for instance, the United States was a very close ally to our friends in Europe. But because of other things happening, we're not friends anymore. And that's how, for instance, we stayed on the air as a pirate station on the Irish border for just under 10 years. And one of the reasons why we were left alone is because the Northern Ireland office decided to tell the Dublin office how to do their business. Nobody tells another department, especially in different jurisdictions, how the other department's going to do their job. That bought us at least another 6 or 7 years of broadcasting, because you're not going to tell us what to do in our country, and you're going to... So if ETs are behaving in a similar manner, it gives them more credence as they react to the reality. That's all I'm saying.
We just have to connect a few dots, right?
Or they could be connected to the dark side, or they could work for the government, who are sabotaging everything for the people. You see, the trouble is, Chantel, the point is, in this country, we have a thing called an election. And every time we have an election, the government always gets in. It's terrible.
Or a selection rather than an election. We have a selection.
Well, actually, way back in 2018, I'm just finishing off the 2018 Bases conference that we held at Christmas. And I had a guest host, very glamorous lady, and she was a politician, a local politician, and she was stood for election and all that. And one of the things she said just at the end was we had a lot. With politics, we have politics. This particular party was a new party, the United Kingdom Independence Party, UKIP, and they were against. They wanted Brexit. They wanted to leave Europe. Blah blah blah. There were upwards of 100 people. 100 of their MPs didn't happen because a couple of gentlemen came down from London and went round the constituencies and simply told each one, nope, you're not going to stand, you're not going to be in Parliament. The person who's going to be is the previous MP. So any idea that when we vote it is actually in any way legitimate at all is a complete illusion. So we are disenfranchised with flawed elections, and it doesn't take whatever happened in the United States. My understanding is that the Democrat Party almost never actually won an election in the United States. It was always going to be a Republican. But those powers that be just decided who's going to be there to start with. Yeah. For instance, John Major, one of the dullest, but one of the most deceptively sinister prime ministers in Britain. He knew he was going to be prime minister because he told his girlfriend when he was a teenager, we have to break up now because I'm going to be prime minister one day. He knew as a teenager he'd grow up and he would become prime minister. The same with Tony Blair. All of this is an illusion and it's subterfuge.
Absolutely.
So this to take up the reins of power ourselves and do so in a proper manner. Okay.
We have a similar situation. I mean, we all know, right, South Africa, but what's come to the surface recently is the mayor of Cape Town, Jordan Hill Lewis is his name, I think. The youngest, he was the mayor of Cape Town when I think he was 43 or something. And recently photographs have surfaced of him standing as a kid, I would say maybe 12-ish, maybe, with the fake Nelson Mandela, as well as a young George Soros. So, there's a picture, if ever there was proof of how the kids are groomed, and I'm pretty sure he's probably going to be groomed to be the next white president of South Africa or something. Hey, that's just my speculation.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. They groom them from young.
Yes.
And then he's this cool guy out there in Cape Town doing all these things with all the local people. When I see this, I want to spit spiders, I tell you, because it's such a fake act. It really, really is. That's Jordan
I think people are beginning to see through that. But the thing is that what else do you do? I mean, this is one of the things about so-called conspiracy theories. I mean, if somebody's dying because they've taken the vax, does it help them knowing that they've been bumped off because they took the vax? Can you untake the vax? It just means next time you don't, but they're going to force that on us because they are showing their hand. And they are showing their hand as murderous. But you see, it's not murder if you're a prisoner, is it? If you've been brought for nefarious purposes. What is really going on? And on that, I think I'm going to have to say goodbye, sweetheart.
Okay, Miles, always awesome to chat to you. We'll see you back next week, same place, same time, everybody. And I hope the Irishman does not give me gray hairs next week and make me wonder, sit on the edge of my chair. Is he going to join me? Isn't he? Is he going to join me? Isn't he? But next week we will see you, Miles. And I think we should talk about the Irish Druids and all those lovely things or something like that.
Well, that's what St. Patrick was all about. St. Patrick was he was dispatched by the Pope to destroy the Christian Celtic or Druidic Christianity.
Let's talk about
a murderous campaign by the Vatican And St. Patrick, like St. Columbus, is a great fiction that we've been taught.
We'll talk about it. And on that note, thank you so much. Hang on. Is there anything that you want to say just in terms of where you're going to be this week?
Basis conference is very important because it's going to be very last minute with what we have, who we have as speakers. So tickets are on sale at basistv.org. And we do have a number of international disclosure people there, but we're going to have these local guys. What we always try to have an experiencers, actually, people who've been there and actually got it, talk. So we're going to do that. And as always, it's going to be a little bit last minute, but it's very unique, the stuff that we put together. And it was absolutely fantastic to get Beverly over and many of these other really top people there at Christmas, and I was very honored to get those people under one roof. Danny Henderson, of course, has got her big conference at the end of in September. Megalithomania is at the end of May, and the Basis 2026 is the third weekend of June. And we are going to try and have seminars so that people want to get really deeply into the whatever subject. We're going to have a special and another venue, a day of workshops where people can get to business up close and personal with the speaker talking, getting the real deal from whatever that speaker is. And that's on the Monday following the conference in June.
Are you going to be streaming live?
We're going to try to, but that's cost us an awful lot of, it's a heck of a lot of effort. And it's cost us a lot of people potentially getting here, but we're going to see what we could do. We've always put it on Facebook. I have a Basis TV site on Facebook, and we'll just put it on that. But we get zero revenue from that, and we really do need to get some kind of revenue stream on that. But anyway.
I think that's what I'm asking, because even if we buy tickets to watch the live stream.
It's getting that to work so that people get the ticket and they get the link. And the thing is, it needs somebody to administer that. And we have to put in projectors, lights, camera, action. These halls don't have anything useful to use, so we have a huge job doing that. And if we can get it out there, I mean, last three summers ago, we were live streaming, and a third of the audience decided to stay in the pub. God forbid, on a sunny day, on a Sunday afternoon, they decided to stay in the pub, drink beer, and look at the conference 300 yards away in the hall on their bleeding phones.
No.
I'm so disappointed.
Yeah. No, absolutely, I agree. Obviously, if you're having a live event, there's a wonderful ambiance that's created with people gathering in one room.
Well, I'm getting 2 special banners made. We're hoping to get the guy called the Suspicious of Skeptic, I think it's called, a guy called Rob from Florida, and he's a really good guy. He's producing shows 3-4 times a day, and if we can get him over from the States, aircraft fuel could cost a fortune. There's one of the people from the States has come over on a cruise of the Mediterranean, and that ship is going to go through the Mediterranean and the Atlantic side of Spain, and then continue the journey back to Florida. And that is only for about 500 quid. And it's like 5 days on the Atlantic included. So maybe people are going to start taking ships across the Atlantic.
Cruising, like we used to in the old days.
Yeah.
Start cruising.
Okay, that's it. We've got to go. All the best.
Thank you, Miles. Appreciate you very much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us again. Really enjoy having our Monday with you. I will see you tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, an hour and a bit from now, with Simona Anderson. Really, really, really great new guest. So join me for that. And on that note, Miles, take good care. See you next week. Au revoir, everybody. And yeah, stay cool, stay kind. Mwah.